Welcome back to the Win with Dice podcast, a podcast featuring members of the Win with Dice team. I'm Calvin, and I'm joined here by Ramon.
Hey guys, if this is your first time listening to the Win with Dice podcast, this is a podcast where we talk about tabletop RPGs. Calvin and I like to take a casual approach to the hobby, so we just talk about, the games that we play and the games that we run, and all the cool, awesome players and GMs we get to do this hobby with.
Exactly. We like to take a casual approach to running tabletop RPGs to hopefully encourage people to hop to the other side of the screen and give your current GMs a break and let them be a player for a bit. Or just, have fun running a game because it's very fun to do.
Yes.
So this week we have a recap of what's been dubbed the Pirate Campaign. As we mentioned in last week's episode, this was recorded previously, but because it was a little bit long, we decided to move it to its own separate episode so you can enjoy it all on its own. So we will get into that recap, but before we do, we have to get to the most important part of the show, the Win with Dice Weekly GM Tip of the Week.
Yes, the Win with Dice Weekly GM Tip of the Week. Brought to you by Calvin. Thanks, Calvin.
Yeah. So this is something that's immediately relevant for me, but the party composition of one of my campaigns changed dramatically, and that two of the characters are being switched out for new characters. And I'm trying to figure out how to get everybody onto the same track, essentially, because I need them all, not, even if they're not entirely moving in the same direction, I need them, close enough that I can have them work as a party. And I feel like the players are definitely going to be into doing that. They'll definitely be, none of them are going to go purposely off on their, they won't do, that sort of thing where they're, purposely just dragging things around or purposely trying to break the game, I guess is the phrase I'm looking for. But what I wanted to do to make it a bit easier and to help me figure things out is to do a little bit of a session zero, a mid-game session zero with some of the new characters. So that is something that I'm currently working on doing. And basically it's just going to be me and the player, and we're just going to figure some things out, who this person might know, what organizations they might be a part of, why they are in a certain area, what their goals might be. Something to help them align with what seems like the direction that the party is currently going in, or the direction the campaign is currently going in. Just to get them on that same track and to have them have a reason to work with the other two active party members. And it also helps me just get a sense of the character in a way that might turn out to be better than just having a biography, which works pretty well on its own, but this is something that I wanted to try because I didn't do it as much before when characters changed in the campaign.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good thing because it's if you, even as a player, if you're role playing a character for the first time, it's a little awkward, right? Even just kind of get into that headspace. So having an opportunity to kind of do it with the lowest stakes, because you don't want to take up too much screen time or whatever from the other party members, is just you and the GM, then you can work on your voice or work on any mannerisms, or really just kind of think about those hard questions of those hard R role-playing questions, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or figure that out for your character. So yeah, I mean, that's a pretty cool tip. I feel like I should have done that lots of times before. It makes so much more sense.
It was definitely helpful for one of the games I'm on the Untold Stories Project channel, their podcast game, as well as more so the podcast game, I'll say, because it really helped me figure out the character. Just doing some stuff off of recording helped me figure out the character's personality, because I kind of took a total left turn from when I was building the character to first playing it. So yeah, I'm hoping that with this, because I'm still struggling a bit to figure out how to get everybody working together, if I'm being honest. So I'm hoping this will help me in a way that I might not have been able to figure out before.
Yeah. So yeah, that sounds pretty cool, Calvin. I mean, there you go, folks. There's your tip of the week. Just if you're trying to introduce a character to an ongoing session or an ongoing campaign, rather, do a session zero and try to work out the little kinks of trying to get them into the story outside of the main I guess playtime.
Yeah, you can really hit the ground running.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into that recap, and I'm just going to edit that part in here. Okay, so let's take a brief detour to talk about the Pirate Campaign, which is a game that Ramon is running for me and a few of our friends. featuring the likes of Helen Highwater, this halfling rogue pirate, Rain, whose last name I forget, who is I think, elven druid.
Yeah, she's an I know, right? It's like, what is Rain? She is an elven druid, and I'm pretty sure her name is Rain, of the Rainforest. I don't think she actually has a last name, or at least she's forsaken her last name, being a runaway princess and all. So,
there is Misty Fastfingers, a human fighter with a lot of snake motif for some reason. I guess because it's cool. And also Ray, whose name I also forgot, who is a human barbarian.
I think his name is Ray Saurus Blood, because our friend Payne is really into Warhammer, Age of Sigmar, or I guess it's not Age of Sigmar. I guess it is just old school Warhammer. I don't know what system what system he plays online, but he plays the dinosaur people, the psychic dinosaur people from space. Those guys are pretty cool. So he's like, yes, I am Ray Saurus Blood, and he has a flying pterosaur.
Yeah, and a possessed axe, a demon possessed axe.
Yeah.
So when last we left that campaign, we had traveled to the witch market because we had to acquire pieces of different ingredients, basically components, to make a net that's capable of catching a demon, because there's a big old demon who's destroying a city along with a dragon out in the material plane. And we had gotten the majority of those things, but the last thing we needed was some angel hair as, like, I guess threads to help tie the thing together. And we were going to get that by winning a fashion battle contest, essentially, that would allow us to basically get one request. And we were training, let's say, with this group called the Slitherheads, which is like this, like, Fey-ish snake-themed gang where they all had different, like, animalistic components to their bodies that were all...
Well, they have snake components to their bodies. They're all basically Medusas.
Yeah.
But, yeah, they're essentially all Medusas. Some of them just had a snake. Others had hairs made out of snakes. But yes, generally snake-themed, biker gang-esque witch group coven.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Snake biker witch coven.
Yeah, to be fair, the witch market is like really like it's like this weird cross of like folksy and kind of metropolitan all at the same time.
Yeah, while having like all the different kinds of weird that are spilling out of different planes. As different people come visit.
Exactly, right. And like the only way to get there is to be a highly magical person anyway, so you have to have like some sort of like magic in you. You can't just be like Joe Blow off the street to go to the witch's market, right? You have to be like you know, a witch or like a hag or like, you know, some sort of wizard or something like that. So yeah,
you have to be weird already to get in.
Yeah, and the witch's market isn't actually like, it's like located physically in the Feywild, but technically it's not just you don't just go to the Feywilds to do it. It's like you gotta go to the witch's market, and then if you just walk away from the witch's market, then good luck, you're just in the Feywilds, that kind of deal.
Yeah, that seems terrible.
Yeah, I mean, you're just never gonna get out. Like, the place is never the same for very long, so you're just gonna get lost.
Yeah. So we did not do that, but we did train with the Slitherheads for this fashion battle. But while we were doing that, we were interrupted by a woman named Tyne, who had brought with her I guess her right hand, Lady Ingrid. And Tyne was pressuring these Slitherheads to essentially deliver a message for her. A message to the person who was running this fashion battle show. A guy by the name of Aether Venus Magus. And she wanted a black rose to be delivered to... I just wrote his name as AVM. I think we ended up calling him Venus later in the game.
Yeah, I came up with the name Aethar because I was like, yeah, that sounds kind of like silly enough to be a magical, you know, elven, like celestial person. And then I was like, okay, then I think Venus Magus is way better than Aether. I could not remember Aether for the life of me, so I'm glad that I think his name is actually just Venus Magus moving forward.
Fair enough.
Yeah, he just goes by Venus now. I think I like that better.
He could go by his middle name.
Yeah.
But yeah, so she wanted this
Yes.
black rose delivered to Venus. The
Yes.
Slitherheads weren't interested in doing so they all got like wrapped up in vines, put into like this eternal sleep, and then Tyne basically told us that we would have to make the delivery for her.
Yeah. So Tyne is like a little bit of background. Like Tyne is like this pretty powerful I guess fae witch essentially. That you know is can have that kind of like evil villain power to just kind of like do a Sleeping Beauty on people.
Yeah, pretty much. But she is also related to someone that we've been hanging out with, a baker by the name of Brian.
Yes, it's pronounced Brian but spelled Brienne.
Yeah, like BRY apostrophe and.
Brienne. Yeah. So yeah, Tyne is one of Brienne's godmothers. I would say fae godmothers that raised Brienne from a young child and doesn't have any actually ill will towards Brienne. Although Brienne did mention that she was the stern, responsible one out of her 3 fae godmothers that she grew up with.
Quite so, as she basically kidnapped the Slitherheads, and then we ended up having to take on this job.
Yeah, Tyne doesn't like to say, doesn't like to hear the word no.
Clearly. So yeah, keeping in with the witch market, we took a turtle taxi, run by a guy by the name of Tertino, over to this Coliseum. Tertino also ended up betting on us to win, so
yeah,
we had to make him
because
proud.
The witches market, one of the things about the witches market is that they don't believe in money. They only value like barter and trade for like goods and like actual like materials or like services. So I think we're like you guys are getting off the turtle taxi, and I never thought about you paying this guy. I was like, I gotta get you guys to the place. Here's a taxi, dude. And you're like, oh, but we have to pay you. And then I was like, oh shoot, I don't take money.
Yep.
And I think everyone spent all of their gobbledygooks on other things, right? So it's like everybody was out of knickknacks to trade. So I was like, yeah, it's fine. Well, so it was just like, yeah, just win and I'll bet on you, and then I'll get rich. Make me rich.
Yeah, which big swing for him. So I'm glad he had that faith in us, though. But yeah, we arrived at like this Coliseum arena. It was full of statues of Venus, like basically all over the place, all made of different kinds of materials and different sizes.
Yeah. Not just statues, but like murals and paintings and like fountains. Like this dude was everywhere.
Yeah, this was clearly his place. So to get to him, we had to finish this battle, this fashion battle contest. So into the registration desk, there was like this small ferry there with like a smaller desk on top of the desk. And then we had to figure out our team name while holding up the line.
Which is pretty funny. Yeah, you guys held the line. You guys took a long time to figure out a team name, which makes sense because the campaign is called Pirate Campaign because nobody could figure out a better name.
I wasn't gonna try. I think it's fun. So yeah, we had like Team Ray, we had Snowflake Fireball, Team Medallion, because that's been like one of the main things through the campaign. There was Misty Rain and the Barbarian Pirates, which was pretty good. But we ended up on Team MRRH, which was just an acronym of our names, but it was very fashionable looking, like a professional fashion label that's just like letters, I guess. I don't know fashion, so I assume this is true.
Yeah, it's just like a bunch of letters, like and like shapes, I guess.
And then like while we were there was like this Cyclops behind us, but not really a Cyclops. They had 4 eyes, but like 3 of them were covered with eye patches.
Yeah, so now he was a Cyclops, and he was very angry. And then I think you guys yelled at him, and he was like, "Oh."
Well, of course we did. We did something important.
Yeah, you guys like threatened to poke out his last eye, and he got really sad. But also here's the issue I ran into, which I thought was a pretty clever thing. Totally not planned as usual because that's just not my style. I wanted the experience of playing in a combat tournament, without actually running like multiple combats.
Yeah. So what ended up happening is after we got in and we got familiar with like the people who were there, the way the tournament was structured, the way it was set up is that we'd have a set of combats with a separate team, and as we were fighting, we'd also have to be fashionable. But we did basically a montage of the tournament. So you had gone through us one by one, just like asking for an idea of a team that we could fight, which I thought was pretty fun. Because the most interesting part is the finals, the final battle. But it's cool to just go through a bunch of different ideas to get there.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I'm very blessed with my players who are willing to just take over the reins and just start making up all sorts of nonsense and be very satisfied with themselves. Yeah. So yeah, it was really cool, and everyone likes to bounce ideas off of each other in that group. So I think it was funny. I think it's because like I specifically pointed out Calvin first because Calvin's a GM. The second longest running GM probably actually has more hours GMing than me.
Oh, maybe.
But yeah, maybe now. I haven't really been running in a long time, but yeah. So, but then somebody else always cut him off before he said anything, which I thought was pretty awesome.
Pretty much. So we fought first these Swamp Bros, who were like these. I think they were like frog dudes or something, but they like
no, they were not. They were just basically like the Mario. Yeah, they were just dudes who were just like had swamp powers, but they were like also covered in mud and swamp paraphernalia, and fashion they would just mud. Fashion mud, and their whole shtick was that they just tried to just jump on everyone's heads, and they would teleport around the arena in like pipes. That was their thing, but I think they I forget how you guys described defeating them, but they just like sucked.
We handled them pretty easily, and then so the next team was the one that Cyclops guy was on. But it was 4 of them, and they all had 4 eyes, but varying amounts of them were covered in eye patches. So one had 1 eye patch, one had 2. We already met the one that had 3, and then there was one that had 4.
Yeah, so you guys were fighting like a bunch of quadclopses, but with eye patches, and one dude who was technically blind, I guess. So I think that describing the fight, you guys said that you guys basically just use their blind spots to attack them, except somebody were sometimes when in the blind spots they would be able to stop your attack, or the blind guy. I think it was the blind guy was able to stop an attack, but then you guys realized that they were all just faking.
Yeah, they had faked this tragic backstory about how they all lost varying amounts of eyes or whatever.
Yeah, but technically they just but they actually were just cheating and had fake eye patches on, fashionable eye patches, mind you. But you guys, after you guys figured it out, they were swiftly defeated once again.
Yeah, they lost the crowd. You can't lie in fashion.
Yeah, apparently the crowd booed them off, and then you guys were able to take the W.
Yeah, and then we fought a team of pixies who were very fast and very fashionable and very, but also pretty easy to fight because you can just kind of just swat them.
Yeah, you guys were able to swat them. I think they were the freaky pixies or something like that.
Yeah.
And they were a little bit too excited, and you guys were able to just kind of like you guys said like, oh, it gave you guys a hard time, but then eventually you just started swatting them out of the air, and yeah.
And then there was, I think my favorite. The last team was the Cactus Toads, and then these were Toad guys. They were like spiky and slimy, but they didn't like look slimy, but they felt slimy. And they were also ninjas.
Yeah.
They were also cool ninja dudes. And they also had pizza.
Yeah, they were cool ninja dudes, all named after different artists, like Van Gogh.
Yeah.
Yeah, and stuff like that. And their whole thing was like they did breakdancing, and that was kind of cool, as well as being ninjas. And then they ate pizza. But I think for the barbarian, Ray just ate, like, did a cool trick and ate all their pizza, and that was pretty cool. So then they gave up. It was quite it was like quite silly. All of these, which was just really funny. It was like 15 minutes of just like making up complete nonsense, and it was super, super chill.
Yeah. Like ultimate TTRPG experience.
Yeah, just forget about the dice rollings. You guys just had a good time.
But we got to the end. We got Venus's attention. He was paying a lot of attention to the mysterious sword that Rain was carrying, because of how that ties into certain story elements, perhaps.
Yeah.
But then he snapped his fingers and the arena changed as we faced off our last opponents, the Sweet Treats. So at this point, the arena split up. We were all on separate, like, small squares, cut off from everybody else, and we were facing against, like, single opponents. So there was Dawn, and she was carrying, like, this big gummy bear, as well as having gummy powers, and she was facing off against Ray. There was Fabularis, who was like a butterfly kind of person, and she was facing off against Rain. There was Karen, who had like moth features, and she was facing off Misty. And then Helen was fighting a big cat, who was in fact a big cat.
Yeah. She was fighting Big Cat, who is a big cat.
So the battles raged on.
So basically, like, Fabularis, I think Rain used, like, I forget what the spell is called, but, like, basically just restrained her with some vines. Tanglefoot. Yeah, she used Tanglefoot to restrain her, and then she was basically kind of stuck. Because I think she was also, like, I had to make, like, a flat check to cast spells, and I failed it somehow. And so I failed like a 5 flat check, which means like I had to roll above a 5, and I did not. So like, yeah, so she was just kind of didn't really do anything for that fight. I think once she got out, she like tried to like cast like a wind wall to try and like stop Rain from moving forward, or like casting spells through it to like kind of like help her not get like nuked. But Rain just basically just she has these special items that transform her into different outfits. So she had this thing called a spike gown, which basically is just like, it's like spiky sea urchin plate armor that she gets to put on, and she basically just like, I was like, at this point Fabularis was losing so poorly that I think it was better for her not to have a comeback and just have Rain just walk through this like, basically it's like a wall of wind and petals, and just walk through and just kind of like stabbed her with her fire sword and got her out of there.
So Rain managed to get through the wind and take out Fabularis. Misty, who has some flying boots, was doing like this, she got in the air, and Karen was able to also fly a bit, so they were having like this aerial battle back and forth, because Misty had these daggers and Karen had like she had a sword of some kind, if I recall correctly.
She had a rapier.
Yeah. So there was
so
some back and forth between them.
Yeah, they were doing like lots of cool aerial duels. I think Karen also casted a spell at Misty, and she did get hit. But Misty has the power of I forget what I called it, but it was basically just like it's like a snake outfit that allows Misty to just have like DR10 magic, which has been
Which is
super
insane.
duper. Yeah, which is a lot, but also like I don't know, it doesn't feel that bad. Cuz like it's not gonna stop. It's like it's not actually better than her armor before. It's just like now she has DR10 magic, or sorry, resistance 10 magic. And you know, for spellcasters, yeah, that kind of sucks, but also it doesn't stop rocks from hitting her, right? So I was like,
Yeah, just
this
throw
is
a rock.
balanced. Yeah, this is balanced. But it's cool, yeah. So yeah, I think she was she was swiftly defeated with a couple of knife strokes. I believe at one moment Misty tried to disarm her, but I think she was able to resist it, but ended up even in that same turn. Misty, I think we described it as Misty kind of like was able to recover quickly, and just with 2 quick slices, like, you know, she was out because Misty Fast Fingers has fast fingers.
Indeed. And then she was like doing these like cool swoops as well, because part of the battle was also like wowing the crowd.
Yeah, I think everybody managed to wow the crowd at least once, and the whole mechanic on that one is that every time at the end of their turn, they can make any sort of check to kind of try and wow the audience, and basically there wasn't really a DC for the check as long as it was high enough. I was like, if it sounded high, I was like, yeah, the crowd's probably pretty excited, and like the more successes you guys had, like the less that requirement was. I think like Abby started out pretty strong with like a 28 or something on the roll, and I was like, yeah, that's really high. So they were like pretty impressed.
Yeah, I think we all got at least 20 something on that.
Yeah, and you know, I basically just gave them like a special star card, and it was like, hey, this is like a free action you can spend on a turn. But I did say the caveat was that if you spent the star action, like you can't gain more than one special star, like basically like favor from the audience. Like you can't gain it if you already had it, and you can't gain a new one if you spent one in that turn. So so they could cash it in for an extra action on their turn, which was, I think everyone did. No one ended the game with a star card, so it only ended up really working out to being like one extra action for everybody for the whole combat, which I think I might actually start doing. I think there's hero points, but I would never use hero points for anything. I think I might change my hero points to be like, here's the star power. That sounds like pretty cool, actually.
You can use them for a reroll. Maybe if you want to have a thing where you can use them for like a specific kind of action.
Yeah, but I need something that people have to use up during the combat, not just kind of hoard.
True.
Yeah.
So they were having their aerial battle. Helen was fighting Big Cat, and basically just tumbling through its legs, trying to get it like off balance and flat-footed so she could do some major damage with her sneak attacks, while also trying to do cool flips, although one of those flips didn't really work out the way she wanted it to.
Oh, that's okay. I mean, I think it was really cool because Big Cat had special treasure cat magic powers where it was able to like kind of dive into the arena or like objects and kind of pop out like a shark attacking people. So that was kind of cool. There was a lot of like cool movement in that small space you guys were fighting in. So
yeah, I feel like this is the most effective Helen's been for a while, but also
actually it was
I
crazy.
did kind of figure out like my groove with her this session.
Oh, that's really good, because I think for a while Helen was feeling like, I mean, there's like a little bit of like Helen was the butt of a joke, like you know, Helen in combat is not that cool, but Helen in the narrative is like super powerful.
Yeah, because she's basically like Batman, Batman.
Pirate Batman.
But yeah, no, I got because like with everything that's been going on with Helen recently, I thought it would make sense for her to be like a little like affected by magic in a way that she can cast some very basic spells, which is basically just a sorcerer dedication. So she has a couple of spells she can use. So for me, what I do is I try to get my opponent flat-footed, and if I can't do it, I'll just shoot them with a spell. And otherwise, that's my strategy, and it worked out pretty well in this fight.
Yeah, it was pretty cool, and it was really funny because I let the players decide who they wanted to fight. Like I gave them all the options. I didn't tell them like what they were, but I obviously just described what they looked like.
Yeah.
And everybody was like, "Oh, Helen, you're gonna fight the big cat? That thing's gonna be really scary." But turns out Helen was the first one to finish their fight.
Yeah, I was the first one done my test.
Yeah, I thought it was really fun because I did tell everybody, like, obviously, like, I just chose stat blocks, not randomly, but like I just chose different stat blocks, and then all of the opponents were like different levels.
Mhm.
So like Big Cat was actually, I think, kind of the one of the lowest levels of opponents you guys could have fought.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so it was very kind of bait and switch. Everybody was like, "What?"
Yeah, but Helen can handle anything.
Yeah. So it was pretty cool. But yeah,
speaking of choosing, Ray ended up fighting the Gummy Lady, and she was able to summon gummy creatures. And additionally, when she got to a point where she had taken enough damage, she turned into a big gelatinous cube. Or at least she covered herself in a gelatinous cube, because she turned back to normal afterwards. But she was also, like, immune to slashing damage.
Yeah, she was immune to slashing damage, because the stat block I used said it was immune to slashing damage. And I was like, man, this is the funniest, because, like, I think the only person that doesn't have, like, it was also immune to piercing damage as well. So, like, I'm pretty sure that the only person who could actually damage this thing effectively with like their melee attacks was Rain, because she has a sword made out of fire, right? It only does fire damage, which is pretty funny. But yeah, like, Ray usually is the damage dealer, obviously being the barbarian, but he swiftly realized that his attacks were basically useless, and then I saw, like, the sadness in Ray's player's face when he realized, oh no, I don't think I could do the thing I want to do.
He's got such cool stuff.
Yeah, he does have such cool stuff. But yeah, it looks like his demon axe couldn't help him this time.
Yeah, just, like, I guess look at the draw for the enemy picked, but at that point, like, we were all able to sort of gang up on her and then just, like, pretty much blast her with all we got. So it became more of a team effort in that moment.
Yeah, which was pretty cool, because I mean, she had the highest HP. I assumed that she was gonna be taken down less. She had the highest HP out of everyone. She does do, like, quite a bit of damage, because I mean she's like big pseudopod attacks and stuff like that for being, like, having jelly powers. I definitely used the ooze template, or like the ooze I guess monster group for all of her abilities, and basically it was just kind of like, you know, smack with the thing, get them stuck, get them grappled, that kind of stuff. But yeah, I don't even think Fabularis, like, was able to really use any abilities. Like, I was kind of mix and matching with her, but she died in, like, 2 turns, and I was like, well, I guess it doesn't matter. I mean, Rain's player got to, you know, Rain got to be super cool, badass magic person, and I was like, I'm not gonna take that away from anybody.
Yeah, it actually kind of reminded me of something that I had gone through in the Crown of Dragons game, where I had a enemy that was going to act as, like, support for a bunch of people who had, like, all sorts of flanking abilities in a small space, but then they got grappled and paralyzed, like, instantaneously, and some of the other enemies got, like, affected by spells in a way that sort of slowed them down, and, you know, just luck of the die sometimes throws off all your greatest plans.
Yeah, and it again, you kind of roll with those punches as a GM, so you just kind of, you know, they're in a competition to like, you know, show off. So this is just them dominating.
Yeah.
Right.
So we succeeded in the competition. We got a trophy. Of course, it was shaped like Venus. And we were able to get a meeting with the man personally. We did ask him for some of his hair, because it turns out that the being that he is close enough to an angel that we could use his hair for this construction of the net to catch a demon.
Yeah. I mean, I think I mentioned this before in another podcast episode where, you know, I think it's cooler when, you know, they're not taxonomic names. People just call things like the same, has multiple names for the same thing, right? They're more like folk names than, like, what it would actually be taxonomically, right? Like Aethar, like Venus Magus is, you know, a good aligned, super powerful magical being that kind of gets like basically just lives outside of mundanity, and I was like, this will probably work because he's like, it's basically like what an angel is, right?
Yeah. So we were trying to get that hair, but he took some notice on a medallion that Rain was wearing, the same place she got the sword from, and the same thing that we've seen the big bad wearing multiple of, that has some strange ancient elven history that we are just barely scratching the surface of. But what we did learn from Venus is that he could hear screaming coming from within the medallion. Which is pretty scary, maybe? I mean, this feels somewhat worrying, because we have seen the demon lady, like, absorb a bunch of souls, but she absorbed, like, a whole block full of people at once. So, like, we haven't seen this medallion do that. But also, it could just be, like, it's not, like, dozens at once, so maybe we just don't see it. I still don't know.
Could be. I will not reveal anything until the players find out, because Calvin is in this game. But yeah, it's a very spooky medallion. It's our artifact. It's very evil. We call it the medallion, but really it's the crystal that's inside of the thing that has all the magic powers. Yeah, so after, like, there was some initial questions, but I think that the game was running a little late. So, or not running a little late, but like I gave my players some time to ask me basically ask Venus questions about the medallion, or like the MacGuffin, like late after the session, because in the session, like, no one could like think of questions at the time, really.
Yeah. So
we did like a retroactive, like, after the session was on, like, away from the table, like, because I think we were hanging out afterwards about, like, what questions did you want to ask Venus, and Venus, I would just answer in character, like, what Venus would actually say.
Yeah, and what he would have known. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we did get some information, but still not enough to know the entirety of what we're dealing with.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were pretty insistent about getting that hair. We did manage to get some of it. And then after that, Ray took out the rose from Tyne and was about to give it to Venus, until he suddenly got, like, this feeling. He rolled pretty well on his save, and he was just able to pull the rose back in time as Tyne's companion, the Death Knight Lady Ingrid, burst out of it and then moved to attack Venus. So we ended up trying to slow her down while she's trying to go for Venus. We did Misty cut down a chandelier, and it landed on her and sort of restrained her for just a moment, and then Helen was, like, yelling at Venus to get the hell out of here or do something useful. And he did cast a lightning spell, which worked out pretty well.
Well, Venus was, like, pretty shocked. I think that, all of a sudden he's not a fighter. He's just kind of powerful. I would say, like, I wanted you guys to be the heroes, really. So I think Venus could have taken one extra, like, I think he missed one turn because of the shock, but essentially it was like Venus was on one. I didn't draw a battle map or anything like that. I was like, this is just everybody's, like, in the same amount of area. It's a very close quarter situation. So it was like Venus was on one side of the room, and then next was the Death Knight, and then it was the PCs. And I was like, yeah, if you need to get flanking, there's enough, you can just flank. If you need to get, like, flat-footed stuff going, then yeah, that's fine. But yeah, I think Helen actually got some pretty good strikes in, and I played her pretty straight. Like, this thing was, like, at the highest CR level I think you guys can fight, or so you guys could have taken her, but her stats are pretty jacked. But surprisingly, I rolled pretty low a couple times, which was pretty epic. And I think a lot of people rolled a couple, like, nat 20s, which is also really epic. So
yeah,
it was a super cool fight. The Death Knights didn't like, she just spoke to the players, and the players are trying to yell at the Death Knight to go away and, like, ask her to stop kindly. And then she kindly asked them to either leave, or she's gonna kill them. Not because she wanted to, it's because she just had to, because, like, she really just wanted to kill Venus. That was her duty, and she was requested to do it, so she has to do what Tyne says.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I don't know if it was you know, got across to the to you guys, but it was like the Death Knight is kind of bound to Tyne, not because she wants to, just because she has to. Like she's like, you know, magically or whatever happened to her, because she was alive at one point, and now she's a Death Knight bound to the service of Tyne. So.
Oh. I don't know if we picked up on like the specifics of why, but it was certainly clear that like she had her orders, she got their orders from Tyne, and she was going to fulfill them no matter what, so we couldn't like negotiate with her basically.
Yeah,
So,
it was not a negotiation. I did give the players the option, because at that point you guys got what you guys needed to complete the quest, which was to get all the components to make the demon net. But you guys decided to save Venus because it was weighing up being like, you know, because you had no skin in this game afterwards, right?
Right.
Like,
so like which powerful being do we want to have mad at us, Venus or Tyne?
Yeah, exactly, right? Like, who do you want basically, like, or who do you want to be like cool with you?
Yeah.
Yeah. You guys chose Venus, so that's pretty cool. You guys surprisingly were able to do enough damage, I think. Yeah, so like you said, Misty dropped a chandelier on top of, as well as like Rain was able to also use Tanglefoot. This cantrip is crazy. Like every time I have to roll my save or whatever, I rolled like a 2. So like it was literally like it was a 2 or a 1 for me to fail the save, and I did it like twice.
Yeah.
So it was always meant to be, and you know I said that it bought you guys like a turn, I believe, because like, you know, having a chandelier dropped on you and like being tangled up, and then I think you were yelled at Venus to do something, so you casted like this big lightning spell that I told you just to roll because it was pretty epic, because you like convinced them with a diplomacy check to be like, hey man, aren't you super powerful and cool? You should help out here. And he's like, oh yeah, right, I forgot how cool I was.
So yeah, he did do that spell. I think at that point Lady Ingrid sort of relented.
Yeah, you guys did. I think she was left with like, she was like maybe like a fifth of her HP, and I was like, this is good enough for her to be like, I have failed. And,
Yeah.
Because, you know, she could have, I think she could have, you know, obviously continued, but I think you guys would have actually killed her, and that's not her. I like Lady Ingrid. I don't want her to go away, so she
Yeah, no, it's cool that she is around and is someone that we have now fought and survived that fight and can probably find us and knows where we live.
Yeah, don't sleep too hard.
Add that to the list. But yeah, she disappeared in like this cloud. It wasn't smoke, it was like feathers or something.
It was like black rose petals, because that's Time's thing. It's like this. It's like black vines and black flowers and stuff like that. So that's like her I'm an evil plant lady vibe.
So we talked to Venus about it, and it turns out that Venus and Tyne have been trying to kill each other for centuries, and they're arch enemies, and she just really doesn't like him.
Yeah, and like Tyne, like the only way, like Tyne basically had to sneak her Death Knight in a rose, because of all the magical wards and stuff like that, to stop Tyne from messing with him. Because again, it's not the first time they've tangled. So
yeah, so he has wards that like Tyne can't get through, but we unwittingly brought her assassin right to him.
Yeah, which is really cool, because, you know, I'm glad that Payne, Ray's character, made the save, because if they didn't, then like Venus would have just been killed straight up. Which, because, you know, yeah, he would have been decapitated, and then you guys would have been, I guess, in trouble, because you guys are like in a room. Alone, right? And then now the dude who owns the place is dead, so that would have been like old times.
Another place we can't stay in.
Yeah, another place you can't stay, but no, it's fine.
Yeah, so we asked about that, and because we did fulfill the task from Tyne, our friends were freed. Our Snake Witch Biker Gang friends were freed. We did try to get Venus to like extend some of his protection towards them. I was definitely worried that Tyne would like come back for vengeance towards them for the thing she wanted like not working out. So I was worried about them specifically. Like if she came after us, I mean, what are we gonna do? We have Brian with us, so it should be fine.
Yeah, I mean, like she doesn't want to mess with Brian's friends. So well, at least for now, anyway. Or maybe she's busy doing something else that she can't really. And this was more like an opportunistic thing because she was in the neighborhood.
I have a few minutes today. Let me try to kill my longtime arch enemy. But yeah, we weren't able to convince them to do so. So hopefully they'll be okay. We got the sense that like that wasn't the sort of thing she would do anyways. Like she would move on if it didn't work out, but you know, just want to make sure they're okay.
Yeah, which they were, and I think Brian mentioned that like Tyne is kind of like a set and forget kind of person, and you know she doesn't like she doesn't like seek vengeance in that way. Like she doesn't have like whatever she's focusing on at the time. Like she won't like be like, oh, it failed. Oh well. She'll be like, oh well, I'll just do something else. Like she's not gonna make it. She doesn't have time to like go mess with people that don't need messing with, I guess. Yeah.
So they'll be okay for now, I guess. And then after that, we have everything we need to construct a new demon net. It will take some time to do, and we're heading back to the material plane. So yeah, I guess whatever we do next is gonna have to fill out that time, and we gotta figure out a strategy to fight this powerful demon lady, Mistress Sonata, who's destroyed a city with this dragon that she was able to revive from its petrification.
Yeah, I would like to say that, you know, I hope you guys figure out what's going on. I feel like I have enough hints, but we play so infrequently that it's like, oh man, I don't know, I think anyone's gonna remember anything.
Is there another thing going on?
Well, I don't know. I would like to say that somehow Brian was, like, everyone glosses over the fact that Brian was raised by 3 evil fairy god parents that are like pretty freaking powerful like villains in their own right, but she's just a baker, and how her blood was the only thing to, you know, resurrect or not resurrect but like de-petrify a ancient red dragon. And
you know what's weird? So we do know that Brian is like, I think she's like a descendant or something of the person who originally petrified the dragon. And she was raised by these 3 fairy godmothers. But I feel like we've just seen Brian as like a normal baker person who also happens to have just like a weird history. But like present Brian as we know her is just like, yeah, she's the one who made all those really good cinnamon rolls.
Yeah, I know, I love it. I mean, I love it at the same time, but also I'm like, oh man, that was hard to do.
I can just like imagine like the party just eating the cinnamon rolls and Brian's talking about like her history, and I'm just like, huh, neat.
Neat, yeah. It's like neat, and it's like, oh, cool. I guess you guys do have a big cast of lovable idiots that you're like, I can't pay attention to this small detail. I gotta go do this flim flam over here.
Yeah, I think we're just too used to like seeing her as a normal person still.
There's like 0 questions really asked about all this nonsense. You're like, oh yep, that makes sense, and everyone just moves on. It's the best. I love this party so much. We're like, it's a pretty long episode.
Yeah, it ended up being longer than I thought it would be. But yeah, I'm really enjoying that campaign. We got to make a list of things that we have to do next, because I know we're gonna need some backup to fight this dragon. So we got to figure that out.
Yeah.
And if we talk about that, it'll be in another podcast episode. So I guess at this point, the recap will have played, so we can roll into the proper outro. Unless, Ramon, I don't know if you have any other thoughts that have come up to you about the pirate campaign since the last time we played it. Or since we recorded, rather.
No, I'm just really excited to continue. I'm glad that the witch market was that whole arc is concluded, and I get to kind of move my story on along a little bit. And there was very exciting moments. So yeah, it was just good. I am excited to see where the campaign goes next, and I'm hoping we can finish it this year. But let's just see how much playtime we actually get in.
True. I don't know if I mentioned in the recording itself, but I'm very excited to be at this point where we have to kind of figure out like our strategy. We have to figure out like who we can work with, what resources we have, because we have the tools to build the weapon we need, but obviously just the handful of us on one ship, we can't take on like this big old demon lady or big old dragon. So I'm very excited to go through like a like just us getting a team together, getting an army together. However that turns out, I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's gonna be good.
Yeah. But other than that, we can go into the outro itself. So again, thanks a ton for everybody out there for listening to this episode. If you want to see more stuff from us, just hit the subscribe button. Check out all the awesome stuff that's going on our channel below. We got a bunch of live streams of games playing through Sims 4, Divinity Original Sin, and Mass Effect 3. If you want to see me be the angriest I've ever been at a video game character, you can come see me react to Kai Lang. I don't know if I mentioned to you, Ravon, but like, like you know how there's sometimes characters that are just like annoying or whatever, but you can move on. Like there's one character in Divinity that really annoys me for a specific thing, but I can live with everything else in the game. But Kai Lang just infuriates me like no other fictional entity has before. So.
Oh man. I mean, it is hard for you to get. It's hard for you to get mad. So this guy probably is a piece of work.
He just shows up and everybody's like, oh, he's so cool, he has a sword, and he's like, oh, I'm so cool, I have a sword. And then he does a thing that's a spoiler, but it really pissed me off that he gets to show up out of nowhere and be like the worst kind of. I don't like to use the term Mary Sue or whatever it is, but he's basically that.
Oh, so, true.
Yeah, if you want to see me be mad at that guy, check out our Mass Effect playthroughs. As well, if you're into the Lancer RPG, we've got a bunch of cool stuff linked below for you to go ahead and check out. And also the Untold Stories Project channel, where I'm at several days a week, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday on the podcast. There's a bunch of cool stuff going on over there. My character just disappeared to where I do not know. And the entire rest of the team has their own dramas going on, so it's very stressful for the Gemstars. And almost equally as stressful, if not more so, for the Freedom League, so a lot of stress for everybody. So yeah, definitely check out all their stuff. They are very cool and fun. And I think below I might also have links to Masks and Mayhem, because I do want to give them a shout out. If you're into the game Mutants and Masterminds, they have a long-running podcast. I don't know if long running is the right word, but they have like 70 episodes of Mutants and Masterminds games. So definitely check them out. They're starting a new series, so go follow them and check out all their stuff. And I think that's going to do it for now. Ramon, is there anyone else we should give a shout out to? I feel like this list is long enough.
It usually goes on. I think normally we have a little bit of preamble, but I guess because of the time travel, it's like it's a little short. But yeah, I think we're good to go, man.
All right. For all of our Witchly GMs and players out there, just remember to keep on winning with dice, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.